Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Tuhami, author of Midway Simplicity, and welcome to a new episode of the Midway Decluttering Show, where you will find practical tips and advice on how to declutter your first 100 items. And I have a very special couple today, Dan and Vanessa from Simple Life Together, a great blog and podcast on iTunes as well. Welcome, Dan and Vanessa. Thank you very much for being with me on the show today.
Hello.
Thank you, Tommy. It's our pleasure to be here. We've followed you from the start, and we absolutely love your stuff.
We sure do.
Yep.
Thank you. This is the first interview I do with a couple, and you come across as very, very awesome.
Thanks.
It's great. It's just great that you are doing this together, and that you are because I have a special question of how to overcome the resistance from your spouse or your beloved ones and so on that's coming on the way. So it's great that you are both together now to share the story. So let's begin by your decluttering story. How did it all start, and how did you get rid of the first 100 items?
Well, actually, the interesting thing is that I'm a professional organizer, so it kind of comes naturally to me. We really don't have a cluttered home, so to speak, but we just started to look at our future, and Dan will probably talk a little bit more about this, but we just, as I work with my clients and as I kind of evaluated our own life, we just didn't want to have, we don't want to be slaves to our possessions. And so that's kind of what got us to start our podcast and kind of sharing this journey that we're on to kind of simplify our lives even more. And then Dan kind of was the brainchild of the whole our edit and forget it challenge that we've started on our own to kind of declutter our lives even further. And Dan could probably go into a little bit more detail on that.
You know, we've moved a lot of times. Vanessa moved 27 times in her life, and I've moved 19. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's amazing, Tommy, when you move someplace and 2 or 3 moves down the road, you have boxes that you never even opened. Right. And you realize, well, what's so magical in these boxes that we're keeping them and moving them around if we're not using it, And so as we're evaluating our future, like Vanessa said, we thought, well, do we really need all this stuff? And do we really want to take all of this into our future? Yeah. And we don't need a lot. We're pretty simple folks. And so we said, well, let's really make a concerted effort to get rid of the things we don't need and to really appreciate the things that we have. Mm-hmm. So I think our culture is pretty ingrained right now with consumerism. And that's something we're really trying to not subject our kids to. Right. and so we need to set the example for them as well.
So, and how did you specifically start the process of decluttering? So where did you start? What items did you get rid of first,
We started actually in our bedrooms because, I think clothing and those physical items are kind of easy to, tackle first. So we just kind of went through, our master closet, and it was just like, okay, I haven't worn this in 6 months or a year, or, actually this doesn't really feel good when I wear it. I don't like the way this outfit feels. So we just started just kind of letting go of those kind of simple things at first.
Right. Yeah. And, some things are, I guess, what you'd call low-hanging fruit. It's you know that you don't need them. You know that you're not going to either wear them again or use an item again. And so, and that's where we would recommend that people start, is that so-called low-hanging fruit. Because as you go on, if in our challenge, 2013 things is a lot of things to get rid of in a year, and especially for us without a lot of clutter to begin with. And so we know eventually we're going to have to make some serious decisions, right. Be very introspective about what we really love and what we really need, and then really deal with the emotions of the things that we want, but we've committed to eliminating from our lives.
Yeah, so Dan's right. We started with the easy stuff first. So for us, it was just kind of the clothes and the drawers in our bedroom and things like that. And so we just started with the easy stuff because we know it's going to get a little bit tougher as we decide to eliminate those sentimental items, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you remember to be the biggest challenge while you were doing the decluttering work?
Well, I think as we were doing some of the decluttering, we did come to, for me, it was a box of just little sentimental items that I had from when I was a little kid, and then when I was in college. I mean, I had my ID cards and my old driver's licenses and stuff with this big old hair, So it was kind of funny looking at these comical things, and even some letters that I had from former boyfriends.
They're out of here. They're out of here.
Wow, you're brave. You're brave.
But I guess the hard part was for me was just going, should I get rid of this? I mean, am I obligated to keep this? And then I was thinking, but why am I keeping it? And what are my intentions with this? Am I gonna put it in an album, or am I gonna put it somewhere so my kids can see it? And so what I decided to do was just I decided to take pictures of most of that stuff, so I was able to capture kind of the memory in a picture, and then I was able to kind of let it go. But I think Dan, he's kind of funny because we came across something when we were editing. It was this remote control, and you have to tell the story, Dan, because it was hilarious. He's like, "Oh, that thing just drove me crazy."
All right, one of my weaknesses, Tahami, is I'm a gadget guy. In case you can't tell, but I work with clients on tech stuff, so I have to have some of this. But one of the things that we got a few years ago was a universal remote control, the soft screen touchpad that controls everything. And even as a tech guy, I couldn't figure this darn thing out to save my life. It was definitely not simple. But so, I guess I got frustrated with it at a certain point. We put it away, and the thing's brand new. And then, it probably sat in a drawer for a couple of years. Yeah. And we came across that, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let that son of a gun beat me. I am going to figure that out. So it's like the $70 remote control that's controlling me.
Yeah.
But,
but to be serious, I think the frustrating part was, one, it's dealing with we spent so much money on that and we weren't able to use it. So you go through these emotions of anger, like, golly, I wasted money on that, or you get mad because you couldn't figure something out and you weren't able to find that item useful. So you kind of go through some of those emotions. And I know I was going through that as I started to further declutter. I was like, wow, man, we wasted so much money on that stuff. And it was supposed to make our lives simple, and it didn't at all.
The thing with that is when I think that's a key point in your decluttering process, is once you realize how much you spent on something and now it means nothing to you and you're getting rid of it, giving it away, it really makes you think about the next thing you're going to buy and evaluating the next thing. So I think it's a very important phase to go through and a very important thing to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move into some of the challenges that my readers shared with me when it comes to decluttering. The first challenge is I'm overwhelmed by too much stuff. So I can't even think of starting this decluttering process. It looks like it will take decades and decades to be completed. So,
Vanessa, that's your area of expertise.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what I recommend, and actually other folks like even Joshua Becker was talking about, it's start with something small. Don't go crazy. Don't have these big dreams of decluttering everything so quickly. Really try to focus on, there's a couple ways that you can approach it. You can try to tackle the thing that's causing you the most pain, the most angst, that's driving you the craziest. So if you're behind on if your kitchen's driving you crazy, maybe you should start there. And if you start there, though, start with something small, maybe just one drawer, one shelf, one cabinet, and then start to get into this mode and get into this process, and then just one step at a time. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do. And if you're overwhelmed on where to start, and you're working with somebody else too, you need to kind of work together and decide, what should we tackle first together? What's something easy that we know is going to be easy for the both of us to tackle? Because honestly, we haven't tackled the garage yet, because that's his baby.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into.
And that's, we have to really kind of prepare ourselves for that, because we know it's going to be a big event. It's going to be a little bit tough to make decisions. So we haven't done that yet. We started to work on things that are a little bit easier for us to make decisions. So that would be my recommendation. Start small, start with something easy, and just take it step by step.
Yeah, and everybody has their own weakness area on that. And For me, it is. I'm a DIY guy. I built we call this our world shed quarters. It's a shed I built in the backyard, and that's our office. So I have a crazy amount of tools.
Yeah.
Whereas Vanessa was looking through her wardrobe, deciding what to get rid of. That's easy for me. I spent 27 years in the military. I wore the same thing every day. So, give me a black shirt and a hat and a pair of pants. I'm good to go. So that was easy for me. But the tools that's going to be a lifestyle switch for me. But I'm ready for it. I'm up for it.
Right.
Yeah. And the second challenge is I think it's for you, Vanessa, being a professional organizer, which is people are afraid to start the decluttering work because they believe that they lack organizational skills.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? The thing is about organizing and having these skills. I'm a big believer in like positive thinking. If you tell yourself that you're not going to be able to do something, then you're not going to do it. And so what I would recommend to folks who feel that way is just really start to educate yourself, listening to folks like you and reading blogs. Just kind of start somewhere, educate yourself, and that will really go a long way with going, okay, because you're going to start to evaluate some of the reasons why you can't organize, or maybe why you're disorganized, or why you collect clutter. You're going to do a lot of kind of internal thinking or, assessment of yourself going, okay, now why am I so attached to my things? So educate yourself first. If you still find yourself getting stuck, because there's all kinds of information out there, even my blog, I have information step by step, here's how you organize a space. If you still feel like you're getting stuck, reach out for help. There's so many people that can, and I'm not at all trying to promote my business or anything like that at all. It's just that sometimes you got to step outside and get help.
I think your blog is very interesting. It has very nice videos and stuff.
Yeah.
It's called Get Simplified.
Yes, with a Z in it. Yeah.
GetSimplified.com. So it's great. It's good that you share this with our audience to get.
Well, I think that some people they're visual learners, they're auditory learners, and then there's kinesthetic learners that want to, so I think though, that's why I try to do written blogs, and I also try to do videos so people can kind of see how to do things, and I think that's kind of helpful. But back to your question about people that feel stuck, I think just try to educate yourself first, and then you can reach out for help. And like I said, you don't expect to be an expert at this organizing process. Every person is different. Every situation is different. Just kind of take a step by step.
Yeah, team up with an accountability buddy.
There you go.
It doesn't have to be a pro. It can be an accountability buddy. And the thing about this is that these are all skills that nobody ever sits you down and teaches you these as you're growing up. You just kind of learn them as you go. And it's kind of like when you're dealing with body issues, that's the only body so your frame of reference is one. Well, it's the same with organizing. And a lot of times, you just kind of assume the organizational skills of your parents or your siblings. And, if you're in a school environment, your fellow students or friends, your folks that live in the dorm with you. And so, maybe sometimes people should, like Vanessa said, educate themselves, but also maybe get an accountability buddy in to say, hey, let's help each other out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very beneficial, definitely. And the next challenge is, what if I have a lot of tasks to do. I finish my work late in the evening, and I have kids to take care of. So I'm either too exhausted or can't find time to do the decluttering work.
Okay, so the question is, how do you start? How do you fit that in? Well, I think the first thing you need to do is that sometimes
it's not mainly about time. It's more of energy.
Energy.
I'm too exhausted by the tasks that I'm responsible for, and the kids or the people that I care about. So I don't have the energy primarily, and also the time to do the decluttering work.
Well, here's what I would say. And we say this all the time on our show, is begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. All right. We call it the desired end state. What do you want it to look like in the end? So if you just take some time to think about it and formulate that plan in your head, that doesn't really take any physical energy. It takes some mental energy, but it also gives you that goal to reach for. And then you use kind of a backwards planning schedule on how you're going to get there. And as we mentioned earlier, if you start with the simple tasks first, those will become part of your daily routine. They'll become habits that are instilled in you. And it may take you a little longer, but what I think you'll find is that as you go forward with these little tasks, you win these little victories. You're going to gain confidence. You're going to be more excited and motivated, and you're going to ride that wave. And then someday, it may be a free weekend or just a free few hours in an evening, you're just going to go crazy on one place that has been driving you insane, and you're going to organize the heck out of it and declutter it. And that's where you build your own energy. I really believe that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That really is true.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And now let's move into the part that you were fortunate to have, which is you both had the same desire to do the simple living stuff together. But for some people, they live in a so cluttered and consumer-based environment, or they have family and friends that are, consumer-based, and they cannot understand what you are doing and think that you are crazy, and you are facing a lot of resistance from people around you. So how to deal with this situation?
Well, with loved ones, and I do deal with this a lot, especially with my clients, first of all, you're going to want to start with yourself first. Kind of look around at things that you could declutter or things that you can start doing to organize yourself, instead of criticizing or being too judgmental to that loved one or that close person that you're living with, or whether it's a spouse, family member, or just a roommate or whoever it is. You really want to start with yourself first. And we talk about this a lot, start with kind of leadership by example. If you start to kind of take ownership and responsibility of your own clutter, that might rub off on them too. I also think that communication is huge. You still need to be honest with your loved one. Let them know how it's affecting you. But of course, you got to be tactful and diplomatic about it. You don't want to be accusatory and demeaning or anything like that, because that will just build up resistance. And but I just think if you just have an honest conversation and communicate with that person, that's going to be a start too. And then, like I said before, start simple.
Sorry to interrupt you here.
Sure.
What are the key arguments or winning points that you talk about in the conversation to win the conversation, or get the other person on your side, or something like that?
Yeah, I think, we had this same conversation with Joshua Becker not long ago. And I think unless you and your loved one or whoever it is are at exact opposite ends of the spectrum, where one has a desire to be a minimalist and one has to own everything, there's going to be some common ground. Mm-hmm. And I think when you get to that point where it's a common ground, and agree on that, well, then you have to work from there. And you also maybe have to decide that, well, if it's a spouse, we'll say, well, this is my area. I'm going to keep my area like this. And I just have to accept, if you're not willing to change at all, I have to accept that your area is going to be like that. Mm-hmm. I think you have a hard time battling the world on this. Mm-hmm. Candidly, we feel different from all of our friends and loved ones. That's one of the reasons we started our podcast, was because we wanted to be more have more community about our journey. Mm-hmm. We couldn't go to our immediate family or friends because, they say they understand, but they may not understand it to the level that our level of commitment. Mm-hmm. And so there's people out there that can try and help you after you get that middle ground. And if it's a total point of disagreement, well, you have to look back. If it's your spouse, you made vows to one another for better or worse. You have to accept that, and hopefully make little victories and just keep on with that leadership by example. It's the same with kids. We really are trying with our kids to gear them away from that consumer society, as they say that in the U.S. anyway. You're subjected to about 5,000 different ads a day. That's a lot of ads. Yeah. And we spoke with someone yesterday about a UCLA study from the Center for Everyday Life of Families, that they looked at 32 different families. And if somebody just Googles UCLA self, CELF, and then clutter, you'll see all these websites on the statistics that the average family here it was in Los Angeles, 32 different families. It's just amazing how much this consumerism has eaten away at the core of the family.
Yeah, and all different income levels, backgrounds, ethnicities, and everything, and people are just consumed with it.
So in the end, you really have to start with yourself, and hopefully you will impact those that you love from there. Yeah. And there's some people, and accept the fact that you're not going to influence everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we cannot influence everyone. Maybe we can inspire other people by what
yes,
we
that's
do.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is key.
Yeah. Now let's move into the decluttering decision-making process. For example, how to declutter items that are associated with good memories, that are precious and valuable gifts that we receive from friends or beloved ones, but we no longer need all these stuff. So how to make the decision for these special items?
Well, what I like to do, and I never discourage anybody from get rid of anything that they truly love, want, or need. Okay, but I have them just kind of go through like a decision process and start asking different questions. But when it comes to sentimental items, I kind of ask them first: is why are you keeping this? Are you keeping this for you? Are you keeping this for your children? And what are your intentions with keeping this? What is your plan to keep all 10,000 pieces of paper of homework items from your kid? I mean, are you going to go back and reflect on that? Are you going to go back and look at every single homework assignment, every worksheet? Or are you going to give that to your kid? I mean, do you really think that when they're 18 and on their own, they're going to want to have 20 boxes of pieces of paper, And so once they start to kind of think about that stuff, like Dan was saying, what is the end state? What is your purpose for keeping this item? Are you keeping it out of a sense of obligation? And if so, do you love it or not? If you don't like it, you need to really evaluate that sense of obligation. You don't have any obligation to anybody like that if it's something that's imposing on your sanity and the simplicity in your life. And so I just start to just talk through just some of these questions. And when it comes to items that maybe aren't sentimental, they're just keeping it because, I'm like, okay, if you don't need it, you don't love it, and don't really want it, why are you keeping it, You go through the emotions of, I spent so much money on this, but okay, just chalk that up as a lesson learned, and then we move on, and we're just more mindful of the things that we bring in. So
yeah, and I think valuable items can be as hard as sentimental items because when you buy something, you don't just buy it once. You buy it with your money, but you also bought into it, intellectually. And in your mind, you had decided at that point in time, you probably went through a process of, wow, this is very expensive. Do I really need it? And then you go through the justification process in your head. Well, yeah, I deserve it. And it's the best there is. And so now you have to undo that as well when you go to get rid of it. And I think if you have even a spark of a giving spirit at all, when it comes to valuable items, you can look at that and just imagine how much someone else may really appreciate it and not be able to afford it and really love it, and maybe that will help you kind of get over that hurdle of not wanting to get rid of it.
And what about the what if dilemma? What if I will need it one day?
Yeah. What if, or we call it Justin. Just in case, So Justin's our nemesis.
Well, that one in particular, what I say is, okay, the whole just in case, I say, okay, can you borrow it? If something happened, could you borrow this item from somebody else? Could you rent it from somebody else? Is it really that inconvenient to maybe, if you really did need it, to be able to purchase it later down the road? But people will keep things like 4 coffee makers just in case they have a big overnight party and then the next morning they got to serve coffee to everybody. And I'm like, really, what's the reality of that? So I just have them kind of think a little bit more realistically. And I'll say, okay, when's the last time you used that item? How long has it been? Have you ever used that item? And so just a series of questions like that, you just, kind of ask yourself. And it actually, when I do this with clients, it's kind of funny because they're like, oh yeah, I never used that. And gosh, it's been about a year since I even had a big party here. I know. So once I start to do that, they start to really start to think about it more and go, yeah, I guess I can let this go. That just in case, chances are that's not really going to happen. If it does, there's alternative solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's good advice. And you know, another issue we had one time was I had this jean jacket from the 80s. All right. I'm an old guy. So it's from the 80s. Stonewashed denim jean jacket, Levi's, you know. And Vanessa's like, why are you keeping that? And I was like, it's a stonewashed jacket. It's from the 80s. And, you know, and, you know, when I really thought about it, what I didn't want to admit, and I'm admitting for the first time in front of, you know, your thousands and thousands of followers, is I never even wore it that much in the 80s, you know, but I was keeping it just in case, you know, just in case it was worth something, you know, or I was going to wear it again.
Yeah. And do you have like a checklist or a guideline that helps you decide upon what you should keep and what you should get rid of, like a systematic decision-making process? Or
well, I kind of do with my clients and personally, just kind of like what I've already talked about is, you know, do I really need this item? Do I really want it? Not just want, do I need it? Do I love it? Do I use it? Those are really the three key words or questions. Do I love it? Do I need it? Do I use it? And that to me alone really is easy. And then when it gets more difficult,
and sorry,
then I start to ask the question.
You again.
Sure.
Is it and or? So is it I need it and love it and use it, or is it or?
I think it's or either any three of those. If you answer yes to any three of those questions, then go ahead and keep it. You can always come back to that item later, and you know, and then once you get better at this and a little bit more comfortable with the process of letting go, you can always come back to those items. But if you answer yes to any of those questions, those three questions, do I love it? Do I need it? Do I use it? And you say yes, then by all means, go ahead and keep it. If you're struggling still or whatever, then you can start asking some other follow-up questions, you know, like what's the worst that's going to happen if I get rid of this? You know, is there alternative solutions to having this item and things like that? So I think those questions are key.
And there's some things that you need at certain points in life and you don't need them anymore. I mean, the funny thing, we live in San Antonio, Texas. And if, you know, folks aren't familiar with San Antonio, Texas, it doesn't snow here, right? But you could drive up the street and people will have their garage doors open and they move down from up north and there's a snow shovel sitting in their garage. It's just a snow shovel. Your chances of ever needing that in San Antonio, Texas are zero. But they just have it and they haven't gotten rid of it. And it's just going to sit there forever. Did they need that when they lived in Buffalo, New York? Sure they did. They probably needed it about 9 months out of the year. But here they'll never need it, but they just haven't done anything with it.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess it's just human nature. It's you tend to, I think you just get stuff and we've been at least been trained. I don't know if it's human nature, but we've been trained to kind of keep these things for just in case.
Yeah, just in case they relocate again or something like that to another area.
Yeah.
And you know, decluttering is useless if the inflow is more than the outflow. So how do you overcome your purchasing desires?
Well, for me, a start is I practice the one in, one out rule. I personally practice this. So anytime I bring one item in, I let go of one item. So that's always kind of a good start. And you may not be perfect at that, but that's a good start, a great way to kind of start thinking about stuff. Then I also recommend, especially to people, and even for myself, is when I go out to go purchase something, I try to wait to really see if I want, you know, and this could be out in a store or even online purchases. You know, you really want something, that shiny new gadget or whatever. Maybe take a break, wait a week, think about it. Just see if you really absolutely do need it and really want it, and try to evaluate how it's going to benefit your life. So that's one thing that you can do as well. And then when you're out shopping, again, try to resist impulse buys. Go shopping with a purpose. Have your list. Don't, you know, because you go to the stores here, like we have a Walmart, and it's the store that has groceries and clothes and just everything. But they strategically put things in the aisles for consumers to just act on these impulse buys. they didn't go in the store to want that thing. You know, they didn't need that cool new keychain, but hey, it's marked down and it's a great deal and it's so inexpensive, you got to have it. And so they try to take advantage of you. So when you're kind of aware of that kind of stuff, that these stores are trying to do that and they're trying to sell you stuff that you probably really don't need, if you're a little bit more mindful of that, then it's easier for you to avoid. But like I said, go shop with a purpose. That's kind of a lot that will help kind of curb some of those tendencies to buy stuff.
Yeah, and I think we all have our Achilles heel or kryptonite when it comes to that. You know, for me, it's tech gadgets, honestly. But, you know, when the iPhone 5 came out, I had a little bit of drool. You know, I wanted that so bad. You know, but then I thought, well, what is it going to do that my perfectly good iPhone 4S that I've had for 2 years doesn't do?
Yeah.
And there are some, I think, who would even say, well, even that gadget is excess. But we have replaced so many things with just our iPhones. Mm-hmm. We don't have, you know, clocks on our nightstands. We don't have GPSs in our car. All we've done away with so many things just with that one little device. So that may sound like justifying, but I think we all have to be careful.
You are talking to an Apple fan, so anything Apple is everything simple. So
right, exactly.
Yes, I love it.
But we all have to be careful of that one little thing that's our weakness.
Yes, definitely.
And I got an accountability buddy for that.
Yeah. That's great. So let's end up the show with a couple of your favorite decluttering techniques or methods that are not too time consuming. Can I go first? Because you'll have a million of them. I like to set a time block for myself. Say, I'm going to take 20 minutes. I'm going to go in the closet and I'm going to get everything out of there that I don't need in 20 minutes. And that's it. And it usually, honestly, doesn't take 20 minutes. It usually takes 10 minutes. But even if it was the garage, I'd have to spend a little bit more than 20 minutes. But even still, I could do it in lots of small blocks. So that's one thing I do. When it comes to decluttering, actually, that's what I recommend too. Set a date for yourself, because a to-do means nothing unless you actually set a date on a calendar and set an appointment with yourself on it. And so try to keep that appointment, whether it be an hour or two, whatever. Dan does short ones, but give yourself an hour to hit something. And then you just want to like I said, use those 3 questions. Do I love it? Do I need it? Do I use it? Do I use it? And then if that works, you're good. I had another tip. I can't remember. You know, well, I'll add, while you're thinking about it, I'll add one too, is develop the habit of touching it once and being done with it. Yeah. Like, you know, every day we pick up the mail. Last night we stood there and we went through all our junk mail. We rip off our address labels and shred those. And then everything else goes out into the recycle pile. Mm-hmm. And then the things that we need to keep, we keep. And then Vanessa scans those using ScanSnap into Evernote. So that's all digital. Mm-hmm. And so it's just handling things as they come in. Right. Paper is notorious for being piles of decisions. And I thought of the one other thing is when you actually do declutter a certain area, when you're done with that session, take that stuff that you want to either donate or trash or recycle, get it out of the space right away. Move it. Don't even give yourself a second chance to keep it. So that's another tip, is just once you do it, once you make the decision, move on. Yeah. So, wow, that's great. I've got so many tips. Yeah. I just can't go over them all. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Thank you very much. Would you like to leave us with like a quote or thought or something that can inspire us when it comes to decluttering and simplifying our lives? Well, you know, one quote that I personally use and I've mentioned quite a few times on our show, and I'm paraphrasing, I guess now. I guess I don't have it committed to memory, but it's by a guy named Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It says, "Perfection is not achieved when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away." And for me, that's a kind of a guiding principle on my journey to simplify my life. And I don't have anything as profound or anything like that, but I always tell my clients, or even myself, I try to start with what my values are in life. And when it comes to bringing other things in, whether it's committing myself to something
an organization, a group, or maybe I'm volunteering my time for something, I try to say, is this in line with what I value in life? Is it going to further, my financial stability, my family? Is it in line with my faith? And I think once you really look at what your values are, you're going to be a lot more mindful on the things that you allow into your life. And then I guess the final thought here is that I know this is kind of people say it all the time, but there really is truth to less is more. I mean, you're going to find a lot more happiness in your life when you eliminate the stuff that isn't important, when you cut out all that other junk, I guess.
And then one last thing for me is if you're not happy now with all the stuff that you have, well, would you be happy with twice as much stuff or 3 times as much stuff? Or maybe you'd be better off with half as much stuff. So just kind of contemplate that and see where that takes you.
Yeah, that's a great ending for the show. Thank you very much, Dan and Vanessa, for the awesome tips and insights that you shared with us today. And I hope to have you again on another show.
And we'd like to have you on ours too, Tommy.
Yes,
it'd be great.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Tuhami, author of Midway Simplicity, and welcome to a new episode of the Midway Decluttering Show, where you will find practical tips and advice on how to declutter your first 100 items. And I have a very special couple today, Dan and Vanessa from Simple Life Together, a great blog and podcast on iTunes as well. Welcome, Dan and Vanessa. Thank you very much for being with me on the show today.
Hello.
Thank you, Tommy. It's our pleasure to be here. We've followed you from the start, and we absolutely love your stuff.
We sure do.
Yep.
Thank you. This is the first interview I do with a couple, and you come across as very, very awesome.
Thanks.
It's great. It's just great that you are doing this together, and that you are. Because I have
not subject our kids to,
right?
and so we need to set the example for them as well.
So, and how did you specifically start the process of decluttering? So, where did you start? What items did you get rid of first?
We started actually in our bedrooms because I think the clothing and those physical items are kind of easy to I guess tackle first. So we just kind of went through, our master closet, and it was just like, okay, I haven't worn this in 6 months or a year, or actually this doesn't really feel good when I wear it. I don't like the way this outfit feels. So we just started just kind of letting go of those kind of simple things at first.
Right. Yeah, and some things are, I guess, what you'd call low-hanging fruit. It's you know that you don't need them. You know that you're not going to either wear them again or use an item again, and so and that's where we would recommend that people start, is that so-called low-hanging fruit.
Special question of how to overcome the resistance from your spouse or your beloved ones and so on that's coming on the way. So it's great that you are both together now to share the story. So let's begin by your decluttering story. How did it all start, and how did you get rid of the first 100 items?
Well, actually, the interesting thing is that I'm a professional organizer, so it kind of comes naturally to me. We really don't have a cluttered home, so to speak, but we just started to look at our future, and and Dan will probably talk a little bit more about this, but we just, as I work with my clients and as I kind of evaluated our own life, we just didn't want to have, we don't want to be slaves to our possessions. And so that's kind of what got us to start our podcast and kind of sharing this journey that we're on to kind of simplify our lives even more. And then Dan kind of was the brainchild of the whole our edit and forget it challenge that we've started on our own to kind of declutter.
Because as you go on, if in our challenge, 2013 things is a lot of things to get rid of in a year, and especially for us without a lot of clutter to begin with, And so we know eventually we're going to have to make some serious decisions,
Right.
be very introspective about what we really love and what we really need, and then really deal with the emotions of the things that we want, but we've committed to eliminating from our lives.
Yeah, so Dan's right. We started with the easy stuff first. So for us, it was just kind of the clothes and the drawers in our bedroom and things like that. And so we just started with the easy stuff because we know it's going to get a little bit tougher as we decide to eliminate those sentimental items, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you remember to be the biggest challenge while you were doing the decluttering work?
Well, I think as we were doing some of the decluttering, we did come to, for me, it was a box of just little sentimental items that I had from when I was in our lives even further. And Dan could probably go into a little bit more detail on that.
You know, we've moved a lot of times. Vanessa moved 27 times in her life, and I've moved 19. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's amazing, Tommy, when you move someplace and, you know, 2 or 3 moves down the road, you have boxes that you never even opened.
Right.
And you realize, well, what's so magical in these boxes that we're keeping them and moving them around if we're not using it, you know? And so as we're evaluating our future, like Vanessa said, we thought, well, do we really need all this stuff? And do we really want to take all of this into our future? Yeah. And we don't need a lot. We're pretty simple folks. And so we said, well, let's really make a concerted effort to get rid of the things we don't need and to really appreciate the things that we have. Mm-hmm. So I think our culture is pretty ingrained right now with consumerism. And that's something we're really trying to